Good morning, you swashbuckling neo-fuckers. Is neo-fuckers even a term? Oh, it should be. Neo-fuckers. The new fuckers. The fuckers that are different than the old fuckers. Yeah, man. Hey, you heard that first here. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for your support. This is a huge episode for me. I sit down and I talk to the writer of one of the best documentaries that I've ever seen, 21 Days Into the Sky. You guys have to watch it. Even if you're not a motorcycle enthusiast or not, it's just a great Americana of our time. I get a chance to sit down with her. We talk on Skype. She's all the way in New York City. I'm all the way in shitty Indiana. And, we talk. We talk about a lot of different things, her inspirations, her writing, her current events. I can't avoid current events, with me. We got to talk about everything. So, yeah, enjoy the show. Like I said, thank you all for your support. This is a huge deal for me, so please take the time to give this a listen. Share this. Please comment on it. Tell me what you think. Let me know if you know anybody that you would want to have on in the future. And let's keep this conversation going. This is a big thing, and it's all due to you guys out there for being so fucking fantastic. So enjoy the show and welcome a good friend of mine, Kate O'Connor Morris.
Look like bunnies, breathe like rats. We're shitting out the babies, and I'm telling you that's man against a better judgment in our human history. Take some time to think it over, it's not difficult to see.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Generation Rising. And today I got a very, very special guest joining me today. I got the writer of 21 Days Under the Sky. Kate O'Connor Morris is here to talk to me. We're going to have a good conversation. I'm really excited. I've been waiting for this for a very long time. Her work fascinates me. It's inspired me. If you guys have not checked out 21 Days Under the Sky, go on Netflix, check that out. It's a great documentary. It talks about a road trip on custom-made motorcycles, a 3,800-mile ride from San Francisco to New York City to go to the Brooklyn Invitational. So, Kate, how you doing?
I'm good, Dion. It's awesome to be here.
Thank you. Now, I remember first watching the documentary, and like I said, it truly inspired me. I love the writing. There's so many quotes that I wish I could have quoted because, it's just, so awesome. And my grandma, who... she means the world to me. She's like a mother to me. And I sat down, I watched with her. I watched 4 or 5 times already. And I sat down and watched her. She absolutely adored it. She absolutely loved it. So I was really excited about that. And I told her I was going to talk to you. And she's really excited. So, it talks about, so can you give me a background on how this came about, Kate?
Yeah, totally. But I loved your intro and I want to hear a lot more about your grandma. She sounds rad.
Oh, she's awesome. All right, yeah. Like I said, can you kind of go through how you got involved with this project?
Yeah, it was a funny string of circumstances. In a lot of ways, I think the whole film has been that. But I was writing out in Los Angeles at the time. I live in New York now, but I was out in LA, and a good friend of mine who's a great photographer named Jason also had a photo studio that I rented a little writing space out of. And I was on deadline. I wrote for a political platform for independent voters at the time. And I told Jason, I was like, dude, I need you to not even try to talk to me for the next 2 days. He was like, oh, okay, well, there's this really great motorcycle filmmaker and photographer named Mike Schmidt, and he's coming over. I really want you to meet him. I think you guys would really get along. I ride bikes. I sort of see the world in a specific way. And he was like, this guy is totally up your alley. Long story short, I was like, no, man, maybe next time. I really got to do this. Fast forward 12 hours later, and Jason's knocking on my door, and he was like, I'm really sorry, but I told Mike about you, and he just wants to say hi. And I was like, fine. And I, like, hadn't showered in 3 days. I was wearing overalls, and I smelled like a literal barnyard. And I walked out, and Mike was there, and we just started rapping out about the world. And he, you know, we kind of saw things in a similar way, and I shared my writing, my published work with him, and he showed me some photos that he'd taken of similar places that I'd been covering. And at the time, that first meeting, he told me that he wanted to do a documentary about his buddies going cross country when the summer came around. And the first thing I thought was, damn, I want to work on that project. And knowing a biker, I was like, I can't tell him that because he'll never give me the job. So I basically was like, it sounds okay. And 8 months later, he called me and was like, I'm leaving in a month, and you're going to write this, and you need to figure out how to get a motorcycle, or I'll get one for you. And we're going. So that's kind of how it came around. It was, it's a really great creative partnership that Mike and I have, and I just feel lucky to know him.
Well, that's cool. It sounds like you kind of hit the jackpot on that. I mean, you know, because, I mean, to be involved with such a project like this, I mean, like I said, this documentary is a true Americana. I really wish, like, every person in the world who especially loves bikes or doesn't love bikes would at least give this film a shot because, like I said, it's just so inspiring. I mean, just right off the bat, you know, it just comes at you directly in the face. It introduces all the guys. You got Gentry Dayton, who's a guy who has, what does he have, one change of clothes like the whole ride? That's hilarious. That's great. You know, he's just a regular guy. He eats a lot. He doesn't say anything. He gets lost. You know, he just does his own thing. He's just a true rebel. You know, and then you got Ryan Grossman. This guy, he's just, you know, he's just telling funny stories. He's absolutely hilarious. You know what I mean? You got one thing that hit me though on the first was Josh. You know, he gets really personal in the beginning when he's talking about his divorce, and you actually kind of see him tear up. I mean, that was just like real stuff like that. I really feel that it draws people in automatically. Like automatically right there, I'm just like, man, I got to see this guy finish this. I got to see him do this. I'm rooting for him, and I'm in it for him. And then at the end, you have Tony Critchlow, and he's just like, I hope I didn't botch any of their names up, but he's reading Moravagin, you know what I mean? Like right off the bat. I was like, because I didn't even really know about the book. I don't even know whose idea that was to even incorporate that. But when he's talking with that whole little segment when he's reading, oh my god, that was fucking amazing. I fucking love that. Whose idea was that to incorporate Moravagin? Was that his idea?
No, I mean, Troy is one of the most well-read people I've ever met. And that is his favorite book, and he turned me on to Blaise Cendrars as a writer. And when we were deciding, like, we were going to sit him down, I was just like, dude, he's got to read from that. Like, just tell him to read his favorite passage, you know? And I think we kind of, Mike decided on, I think, 4 of the best guys to do this. They're honestly just, like, amazing, genuine guys that were down to do whatever they needed to do to make it happen. But they also didn't really compromise much for the camera, which I think is why I feel so lucky that it worked out that way.
So how did you get these guys all? Okay, keep on going.
Oh, no, go ahead.
How did you get all these these 4 guys together? Like, you know, do they know each other or what? I don't. It's awesome. So.
Some of the yes and no. I mean, I think that I'm sure you can say the same thing here too. It's like you never really know someone until you go on a long ride with them.
Yeah.
And it ended up, you know, thank God it worked out. But so, you know, everybody knew of each other because they were prominent in the chopper world. But, you know, they're all from different parts of the country except for, you know, Ryan and Troy. Gentry is out from New York, and Kurpius is in the Midwest. So it wasn't like they were the best of friends, but it's funny, like, everybody is still super close, and I don't think we can really say a bad thing about anybody.
That's awesome. That's great. And before, like I said, I sat down, I watched the movie for the first time, and I just started, scouring through the credits. I started researching. I'm like, I gotta get a hold of somebody from this movie. I mean, this is, so I was thinking at the base minimum, I was going to get one of Gentry, Ryan, Josh, or Troy, but I came across a diamond in the rough, and that was you, Kate. I mean, you're the writer of this. I mean, like I said, I love it. I absolutely love it. The narrator Robert Patrick was absolutely amazing. Did you write all those lines for him?
Yeah, and honestly, I couldn't have imagined a better person to read it. He just killed it, and a lot of people don't know this, but he's actually ridden the Lincoln Highway multiple times, and we didn't know it when we approached him.
Oh, wow.
So I think that there was like a great sort of synthesis there. But yeah, I wrote most of it when we were writing. Like I would pull over, or I would write at the end of the day. And as it kind of came to me, and then the final little bit I kind of wrote in one sort of frenzied day during post-production. So.
Okay, so that's absolutely even amazing than I didn't even know that. So you're just literally on a ride. So this is kind of like an unscripted documentary. They're getting the photography, they're getting the shots, but at the end of the day, like, you don't even know how it's going to go down. So you're getting all the emotional feels, you're getting the experience, and then at the end of every day or whenever you decide to write, you're drawing from what you experienced, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. Like that, that really doesn't ever happen. So this is like even makes it even more of a true remarkable piece of art. Just having that, the lack of wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was scary during it because Mike and I would say we were building the whole plane while it was flying, and there would be days where it felt like we weren't getting anything, but basically my goal was to piece together a story with what we ended up with and to extract what we needed from the characters without compromising them, because they all have their own lives outside of this. So that was something that mattered a lot to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, you already set the what do you call it? You already set the tension, because like I was telling you before when we were having a conversation before this, I mean, you're taking custom made choppers 3,800 miles complete across country. And like I was telling you, I'm terrified to take my car 250 miles and getting stranded on the side of the highway because I don't know what the hell to do sometimes, so that's like, it's true, I mean, I get it, you know what I mean, because like, you guys are in this, you guys plan this out obviously, but just that, I mean, I love that. There's something beautiful, like, that's the greatest thing about this nation that I've talked about a lot, is the beauty of the landscape. And man, Michael Schmidt did an absolutely amazing job. I mean, the salt flats, man, I mean, how that was filmed, you're riding over that. I mean, it's just like, holy shit, like this, you don't even expect that to be on planet Earth. You know what I mean? Just like something like that. You know what I mean? In the middle of nowhere, Salt Lake City, you got this weird, like, it looks like a Martian landscape, and it's just so cool. You got motorcycles, which is, beloved to me. I don't know. I'm getting all fangirl over here, but I just love it.
No, it's not. It's awesome that you brought that scene up, because I think that was one of the best examples. Like, that was a kind of a mistake. Like, we had planned on being able to race the bikes on the salt flats, and then we found out that they were flooded, and Troy was like, well, we still have to go. We can't, like, be this close and not do it. And it ended up being so beautiful and so much different than the classic, dry salt flat racing. It ended up with something that was so much more organic, and then Troy's bike breaking down, and it ended up being super beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And the good thing about like something like this is, like, they demonstrate just how, like, they're just four guys on a ride. It's just so real. It's not like scripted. It's not like, they're each trying to hold their own egos. Like, it seems like a lot of the time, man, like, just like I think anybody would if you take it cross country, they're just trying to have fun. I mean, I get it. There's probably a lot of hard days, nose to the grindstone kind of thing going on, but I mean, just in those moments, you know, where he just like runs into the lake and he falls down and he gets all wet. I mean, that's just, I don't know, man. It's just, it's really good to just appreciate the human experience, especially through a medium such as that, you know. So, I'm trying to think, did you have any inspirations? Like, I mean, obviously with that whole thing, but like when he brings you the project and he tells you, you know, this is what we're gonna do, like, what's like the first thing that you did to prepare yourself mentally and physically for this trip?
You know, I think in some ways I did nothing, which was perfect. Like I didn't bring a tent. I didn't really think very much through. I just knew that I needed notebooks and pens, and my my biggest hurdle was that I'd never ridden a Harley. But Mike and I knew that if I was going to write about the American dream, I had to do it on a Harley. So I just kind of made that decision and we committed to it. And, you know, the rest was kind of history. I think as a writer, in some ways, it was a very challenging project because obviously I was the only girl in a pretty, you know, I think there's a lore around the all boys trip. So one of my goals was to get in there and build relationships with them, but also to let them forget that there was a girl around so they could be themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I get what you're saying.
So it was you know, and then that was sort of my strategy. And then the minute that kind of the ride got going and, you know, we ended up at the El Forastero clubhouse, I was like, this is useless. Like, they already accept me, and actually, like, I'm buddies with a lot of them. So I think in a lot of ways I was more surprised by being unprepared.
Okay, right on. That's good.
And I think if I had thought about it more, I would have been way more scared.
So you're one of those people like me where you just overthink everything. You just kind of let it go with the flow.
Totally.
Right on. Okay. Now, did you know of Tom Fugel before this movie and this project? Anything?
I did not know about Tom. I knew it was one of the first things that Mike mentioned to me, and he was like, you know, we kind of have this invitation, you know, Gentry's going to get a seat done by him. And I was like, well, then that's what the story is. You know, this is insane. And I started kind of like trying to look into him, and there's nothing. And I was like, this is crazy. And then, you know, the first day we left from Los Angeles and we rode up to Salinas, which is about 350 miles. And I hadn't met any of them formally. So really, like, you know, you're on a bike, you can't talk to people while you're on the road. So we sit down to dinner, and I asked Gentry, I was like, so why Tom Fugel? And in true Gentry form, he was like, you sound like a writer right now. And when you get there, you'll know. And he was so right. You know, I think in some ways Tom he's a little moment in the film, but I think in some ways he's the anchor of the whole movie for me.
Oh, Tom, you said?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The build-up is especially cool, and it's just like it's cool to see, especially him try to be involved with something like this. You know, I mean, I thought that was really cool of him, and it's so real because his reactions are all real, and you know, and then I really liked too was like when you guys are showing and demonstrating the footage. And then at the end of it, you're like, well, there's some things that we're not going to show just, you know, for basic respect. And I was like, well, that's awesome, and that's respect. And I thank you for telling me that. You know, you guys probably seen some cool stuff, you know?
Yeah, you know, we were given insight into a world, and we're all really close, like I said. Like, I was just up there with Gentry last winter at Tom's shop for about a week. And, like, there are stories that could get the club in trouble if people wanted it to. There are stories that, you know, I think out of respect, you you honor the lore behind the Outlaw Club, which is like members only.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a project such as this, which I have absolutely no idea because I've never been involved like a project like that, but it's just like these people, all these people that are involved on the camera, they're all opening themselves up to you. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. There's got to be that certain respect line, and there's got to be that certain, tiptoeing a little bit just to make sure you're not stepping on any toes, or maybe going, farther in. Like I don't know, but like I would just assume that's how it is, right?
Yeah, and I also it totally is that way. But I think the thing that surprised, I think all of us, but I think the thing that opened my eyes up the most in with the El Forastero and the outlaw club culture is that the biker, and I talk about it a little in the film, but like the biker as you know it is not what you think. It's not Sons of Anarchy. It's not all the Hell's Angel reporting that people love covering. It's like it's almost like the biker's been given the same narrative as the great white shark. It's like you only hear about it when he kills somebody.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And the thing that I learned from Tom and Moose and all those guys is that they are the truest forms of freedom I've ever seen. Like Moose he was riding a bike with a dented gas tank because the last time he was out in Santa Barbara, he'd ridden it accidentally off the side of a mountain. And he was like still riding this like fucking thrashed gas tank, and he loved it. And no one was like giving him shit. Like no one cares because you're having fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's just about the ride, and you see like I mean, there's always going to be posers in every sort of thing, but I think that's cool to see like wear and tear. I think, and to demonstrate that fully and like not give a shit. I think that's one of like the biggest like biker moral codes that there is. It's just like, it's like a life well lived, like you always say and stuff like that. And I don't know, man, that's cool. That's a really good story.
Yeah. I think people are always hungry for those like illicit stories because it's not a life that we're not used to taking those risks in the real world. But I think that truly the bigger risks are the stories that we did share.
Oh,
It's not about being an outlaw. I think it's about being free.
yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So you went to So how was because the movie didn't really show it, but how was that Brooklyn Invitation? I know you just recently went to the obviously the newest one, but was that one awesome too? I mean, like what did the guys feel like when they finally made it? Was it like a weight off the shoulders? Was it like, oh my god, thank God? Was there excitement? Like run me through that.
There was a ton of excitement. I mean, it was a stressful entry into New York because it's Russia. We came in one of the worst times to ride through New York City, and it's terrible to ride here anyway. So I think everyone was A, relieved to get off the bike. B, we were all exhausted. But all the guys were just over the moon with it. And, I think there was a lot of sleeping, a lot of looking at bikes, and kind of coming down from a trip like that. It takes a couple weeks, I think, to totally come out of that.
Oh yeah, I mean you're literally like bone to the wind or something like that, which doesn't make any sense. But
No, that makes total sense.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you get me, Kate. You get me.
But yeah, Mike and I just did a ton of drugs and then went to bed for like 2 straight days, I think.
Oh yeah. All right, so I mean, so you guys said you guys are all still close, right?
Yeah, we're all close. I think some of us keep in touch. Others, I'm always happy to run into all of them. But like I said, like Gentry and I were out at Tom's. We flew out together to go visit him in the winter. I'm actually gonna talk to Mike later today. But yeah, it's all everybody's. I think so, a trip like that. There's so many ups and downs, and you just see the real version of somebody that no matter what happens, like you kind of have someone you're cool with for life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you had to build like long-lasting relationships on a ride like that. I mean, one of the cool things too was I think it was Ryan when you guys are in the the Walmart parking lot and that you're riding through that rain and you're just talking about like getting soaked to the bone and how like you're gonna be cold forever and it's hell on water. I mean, that really resonated with me because I mean, just like a quick story on my part. I mean, the first time that I rode my bike to work, it was nice out. I worked 3 to 11s at the time and I forgot my eyewear, my glasses, and I was riding home, 11 o'clock at night, and it started raining. And, oh, man, I got soaking wet. I mean, I'm getting pelted in the eyes. I'm like, oh, my God. I don't know if I should pull over or just keep riding through. I ended up just completely riding through it. I toughed it out. But, especially like on a ride like that, you're just riding in extremely cold weather. It's so cold on the bike sometimes, like when it's just like 50 degrees, it's freezing when you're riding, especially 60 or 70 miles an hour,
That's a crazy story. I kind of can't imagine it, but it's one of those things where you just said it perfectly. It's like when you're on a bike, you kind of just deal with it, Where any other situation, you'd be like, oh, I gotta, I'll wait it out, and waiting it out's almost worse on a bike. So you just kind of knuckle down and get it done.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was honestly that passage, that whole like Montana, Wyoming with Ryan in the, with his duct taped rain gear. And,
yeah.
That I wrote at the end of the day, and I never revised it because I was like, it's not going to get any more real than that. That's what it was. And I usually like obsessively revise things. That was the only thing I didn't touch for the 2 years after we got back. 2 years.
Yeah, what year was that you guys were riding?
It was 2013, I think we left. Yeah, and then we did post-production for a year, and then it got picked up a year after that.
Okay, right on. Now, like you go in the depth too, and like I've been out riding too, and sometimes you do get split up. How many times did you guys get split up, and did you ever freak out?
Easily we lost each other once a day.
Yes.
It's but everybody was super good at kind of waiting by the side of the road or at the time I lost my phone battery was terrible and I'd lost my charger like at some random casino that we stopped at.
Nice.
And so I just had everybody's phone number written down in my journal. And if it ever like got weird, then I would just like ask somebody for their phone and call them. But one split up story that always sticks out in my head is it was right after we were leaving Del Forestero in Sioux City, and I got lost from the guys, and I was like, oh, it's like Iowa, it's a straight line, like I know where we're going. And I hadn't slept in like 2 days, and I just was like a total manic person, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna take this side road, I'll get off the highway so I can go a little bit faster. And I kept seeing like signs that's like road ends or like construction, like new road, and I was like, like F that, like it's just a sign. And then all of a sudden I just like look ahead and it's like literally just like grass and dirt.
Ooh.
And I just like rode out like straight onto it and then like turned around and ended up at the gas station where they all were. And was like, of course, like I had to go on this like totally weird road, almost like throw my bike down just to find them at this random gas station that they like, I didn't even know why they were all like sleeping in the grass there.
Now, would Gentry like really get hungry and like leave without telling anybody? Because that was funny. That would be funny.
If Gentry had to eat, he would break away from the group. he would never like desert you. Like he would tell you where he was go. Like if he got there, he'd be like, I'm here, But
right
like
on.
He wouldn't push through if he was hungry.
Right on.
Or, like, you've probably been in a circumstance where you're like, I'll just, like, pull over to a gas station, like, at some point. Like, I'm hungry, but, like, it's not the first thing on my mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, if he didn't eat breakfast, like, it's not an option. Like, he has to eat breakfast.
That's awesome. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever realized. Well, you actually do realize, but have you ever read these art and the Zen and Art of Motorcycle Maintenance
Yeah.
by Robert M. Persig? Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the good things before I started writing, I actually read that, and it goes in the beginning of the book. It's talking about like how you're feeling in tune with the world because like when you're riding in the car, you got the windshield, you got the doors, you're surrounded by a metal box. But when you're on a motorcycle, it's like you're kind of connected with everything. It's kind of like a spiritual zen, like he says. And I mean, but riding on hours on end, there had to be certain times where you're just like totally in the zone. That's the one thing that's great about riding a motorcycle is it's good to quell the mind. You know what I mean? And you could always run into stressful situations because there's always stressful situations out there. But it's just there's nothing better than just like riding on like straight asphalt. Just riding it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the spiritual. I'm not a super spiritual person, but I think that the spiritual quality that Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance tapped into is totally true, and it's exactly what you said. I think that there's this perspective that kind of putting your life in the balance automatically creates on and off the bike.
Absolutely.
Everyone's like little problems or freakouts seem so tiny when you just like almost got sandwiched between two 18-wheelers,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Or even if nothing happens, like even if you just like sacrifice it and get to where you're going with no issue, there's just, like you said, it's a spiritual, almost a meditation.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a huge correlation between that book and what you did because, in that book, he's always talking about his Chautauquas, and he kind of did the same thing that you did, like where he would ride for a little bit and he'd, rest for a little bit and then he'd write, and you kind of did the same thing. I mean, you probably were going through hella Chautauquas, for people who didn't know Chautauquas, it's just like a whole, where you just go through like a thought process and you just battle it out in your mind as you're writing, and then after you're done writing, you could just like revise and probably write, so I think that's a major correlation. I don't know if you realize that, but I think you did the exact same thing.
I totally didn't think about it until you said it, and I feel awesome now. I think the thing that writers always are asked about their process and so on. I think that I don't have the best process, but in some ways, being on the bike forced me to have an element of following inspiration. So you're so much more aware that your thought is going to leave your mind when you're on a bike because you don't have your hands. Like you can't just like it's not super easy to pull over on the highway and jot something down really quickly and then keep going. Like you kind of have to like you get to a brink and you're like, no, this is the idea. Like this is the thing, and it's got to get down right now. And it sort of forced me as a writer to learn that the best way to be successful is to write from inspiration.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's so hard. I mean, it's especially you being like a major writer and stuff. I mean, when someone asks you, it's such an open-ended question. Like, what's your process? It's like, well, writing is really not like a mechanical job or a construction job where you have blueprints and you set it out and you buy all the materials and you put it together. It's just kind of like a free for all. You know what I mean? You don't, because technically at the end of the day is you don't really realize how you're going to feel at certain times. You know what I mean? And how you feel and the emotion that you lay from that pen to that paper drastically changes. So I mean, if you're sad and writing something, it's going to be completely different if you were happy in writing something. And I think that's what makes writing the realest art out there is something like that, is because your emotions vastly affect the work. Not that to say that they don't vastly affect other works, but I'm just saying it plays like a major role when you're trying to battle in your brain and you're trying to like write through a medium such as like a pencil to the paper kind of thing,
Totally. And I think the thing about writing is that it's a linear art because if you're reading, you understand the language. So if you can't give it your all, whether you're sad or you're happy or you've just had like a fucked up thing happen in your life, like if you have to try your hardest or you do a bad job.
Absolutely. You got to be dedicated to the craft, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's tough. I think about writing is that I my fiance is a photographer, and I'm super into the visual world, but there is something that's different about an image that's open to interpretation, where writing is actually like open to criticism because it's so translatable.
Oh, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
So I find that like the flack that I end up taking on myself when I'm like, I could have done better on that is when I didn't give it my all.
Oh, right on. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's probably why you're really good, is because you're really hard on yourself. And a lot of people that are hard on themselves, they try to fight through it. They try to fight and be better. Wherever that better is for whoever it is. It's all probably different and personal. But do you have any like favorite books that you had that like helped you like kind of hone your craft and get your voice, your personal voice for your writing?
Yes, I'm a big fan of the beats. That's probably obvious from my style, but I brought Leaves of Grass, which is not he's not a beat, but I brought Leaves of Grass on the ride with me because I think to me I was writing a song for the road, um, and that gave me the devices that I wanted to be looking back on, and in some ways I feel like Walt Whitman was the first beat. Um, and then Ginsberg's Howl,
Nice.
portions of Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac actually, one of I think his best piece of writing is an intro letter to Robert Frank's photo exhibit on it's called The Americans, um, and he's just talking about images, and that's an essay I go back to constantly. You can actually just Google it if you. It's like Jack Kerouac, Robert Frank, The Americans. You can pull it up. Um, it's amazing. Um, Hunter S. Thompson, I think, is when I'm tackling a longer lead project, I go to Hunter S. Thompson because I think he did a great job of calling out the assholery in people, but also commenting on America in a way that was constructive. So he's a Bible for me in certain ways. Joyce Carol Oates, just to not have any women. Joyce Carol Oates is one of my favorite novelists.
Right on.
And I think she's prolific. So whenever I have a writer's block, I just like look at her work as a way to tell myself to shut the fuck up and keep going. But she also tackles super dark matter in a very beautiful and feminine way. I think that it's important for me because I spent. It's interesting to be a woman in the creative world because I spent so much time like trying to disown that femininity because I wanted to be successful and I didn't want to be labeled as a woman writer. And I think Joyce Carol Oates is a woman that writes like a dude, which my fellow colleagues are gonna freak out about me saying, but I think that that's something that I look up to.
Well, I mean, I really do appreciate your pure brutal honesty, and it's actually unfortunate that you kind of had to feel that way. You know what I mean? But it probably drove you to do the work that you did. But yeah, I mean, you know, when I first started reading, and like you said, you want to know a little bit more about my grandmother, but she read all the time, and I'm like 8 or 9 years old, and I'm like, oh, I like TV, I don't like to read, that's for nerds and stuff, and she's like, just stop, just go read a book, and I'm like, it took me a long time. I think one of my first book that really got me heavily involved in the reading was at an early age. It was called The Red Dog, and I think the author was Bill Wallace. I don't know if I still have that book, but just being involved in the storyline. I read a lot of fiction growing up. I obviously read the Harry Potter series and stuff like that. And then my grandmother, she also went to school she went to college for philosophy. So one day I'm scrolling through. She had massive amounts of books scattered everywhere through the house. I mean, like, it was just an awesome place to just dig. You just dug for stuff. So I would always dig because I'd be bored sometimes. And one day I came across the Republic of Plato, And
Awesome.
yeah, so I started reading that, and that kind of made me transition to like the non-fictional stage. I was heavily involved with Dean Koontz for a while on the fictional aspect of it. The famous horror writer. I loved his attention to detail, and I really believe like Intensity, one of his novels, is one of my favorite books of all time. And then
Awesome.
then I started going into like other deeper realms, like psychological studies of hatred and stuff that people really didn't care about, none of my friends cared about. But I always find it very, very moving to me because I wanted to be a writer. I took a freelance class for a while 2 years ago, and due to unfortunate circumstances, I couldn't continue. But whatever. I mean, like I told you before the podcast, I do try to write a little bit here and there. I try to do some poetry and stuff, and yeah, books play a very big role in my life. And we were talking about too before the show was how people are, they really don't have time for that whole 500 page novel, which is really unfortunate. But like I said, we're an evolving species, so wherever this medium, which it looks like it's maybe dying out, quote unquote. But I don't know if that's the right way to say that. I think it's just expanding and like evolving into something better and like more emotionally engaging.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think, like you just said, like I think the medium's changing. I think we're still hungry for stories. It's why television's so good right now. Um, you know, I'm just offhand thinking like series like True Detective. Everyone's about to sit down for the Walking Dead premiere, and everyone's going to be talking about it. And I think that's last generation, 2 generations ago, maybe. Books, or when Charles Dickens was publishing his Chapters of Great Expectations hundreds of years ago, like people were talking about it then, like they are crazy television series now.
Oh yeah, especially when you look at Netflix, they're killing the game. Like Narcos, House of Cards. I mean, that shit's
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's absolutely cool that you see, something as Netflix, because the TV industry, has been dominated by ABC, TNT, and cable companies, and now you see this whole thing coming from Netflix. I mean, these are spot on series, well written, well acted. I mean, killers, man, killers. And like you said before, Walking Dead too. I mean, there's so many great shows out there, and it's just and maybe a lot of people, they don't really understand the true aspect of what good writing actually does. If these shows, they didn't have good writing, I think they'd be a shell of a shell of a series.
Yeah, there's always that moment in a television series where you can tell they either lost their creative team or a new director came in, and what was like once this magical thing is losing itself. Yeah, like I said a little while ago, I think that like the thing that separates the I think a lot separates a great writer from an okay writer, but I think that even if people aren't reading all the time, you still respond to well written work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's television or or poetry or a film.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally, like, the powers of the writing medium are, I mean, essential, especially to a growing and thriving society. I mean, there's movies like, or take for example your work, the documentary. You go into it, and like after you're watching it, you're like, dude, I want to fucking ride across country, like not yesterday, right fucking now. Like, fuck it. Like when you're literally saying in the beginning about like taking the journey, just going for it, not thinking about it. I mean, I'm like, shit, I'm gonna shut this documentary off right now. I'm gonna go for a ride. Like that's how engaged that I was. Me being a ride, a motorcycle rider. I was like, man, yeah, dude, you're so right. Like. And then I love how for your person that you're talking about, Hunter S. Thompson. I don't know if you listened to my episode on that, but I mean his unconventional wisdom, and his ability to stare things at the eye without using his ego, made him a fucking force to be reckoned with. I mean, writing for Rolling Stone, taking down, going after Nixon with Bill Murray. I mean, just this dude was he was a juggernaut, and I really wish that, I don't know what's going on, but like. Maybe people like you are obviously doing good work and stuff, and I hope you guys continue to do it. But I just really wish, there'd be like more Hunter S. Thompsons. We need more Hunter S. Thompsons, because his ability to just go right for the heart and not give a shit. Not give it shit. Like when he's being interviewed, oh yeah, I'm high as fuck, I'm on drugs right now, and I love it, and blah blah blah, society sucks. It's just like people, they kind of need to hear that. Like a lot of times I think we take ourselves too seriously. Like we were talking about too, along with this election. It's just like, if everybody would just bring it down a notch, understand that, at the end of the day, the president, whatever, we're still going to be American citizens. We're still going to be alive. And it's how we go about dealing with the situations at our hand is what's going to make the world a better place, maybe.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes from two things. I think the writing industry in general, it's less rock and roll than it used to be. And people will be like, a lot of people will ask me, like, how did you write that script, or like, how did you write that essay? And I'm like, I took a fucking lot of drugs. And and people will look at me like I have 9 heads. And it's seen, I think it's more of like a buttoned up industry now, and I think that's its own shortcoming, because you're supposed to fucking push the limits. That's
Hell
what you're
yeah.
supposed to do. How do you get better? And I'm not advocating for everyone to take drugs and go to their laptops, but I am saying that if you're gonna push it, you have to do it in whatever way you're gonna break a boundary. And for me, that's like whiskey and speed.
Hey.
For somebody else, it's like pot and red wine, or it's like going on a 10-mile run.
Yeah, to each his own. And like you said about the bun up industry, and it's just so weird, especially in today's standards. How people, they're so quick to be like, oh my god, drugs, what's that? Or just thumb it off, and it's just like, you're doing a crazy work. I mean, you're literally trying to influence it and like spread your basic human experience. And like, I don't know how the hell you feel about drugs or anything, but I mean, I just don't feel that it's anybody's right to tell you what you can and cannot do with your body. That's just my opinion.
I feel, for the most part, I feel great about it. I just think, like, you gotta have a little bit of self-control.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I think, I didn't mention him when we were talking about writers, but Nels Algren, who, he was totally underappreciated during his time, but he wrote this book called Walk on the Wild Side, and it's amazing. It's about train hopping. It was, written before the Beats came around, but he said, and I go by this a lot, it's like, if you can't write anything worth reading twice, then essentially you're irrelevant.
Ooh,
and
that's awesome.
And my thing is, like, if you're not pushing your limit and you're just going to if your idea is going to sound like every other person that's bored at their fucking desk, then you're wasting your time.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think that, like you said, I think the election and the way that politics have gone now, it's so much dishonesty and so much mindless jargon now, because I think we're just used to being beaten down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think if one person, like, I think Bernie Sanders was so successful, who knows how much he would have gotten done. I honestly can't tell you, but the thing that he did was he awoke a really, really tiny beast that people didn't know still existed in this country, which was honest, passionate rhetoric.
Yeah, and it was completely and 100% honest caring for people. Like, I mean, I followed Bernie, before he even joined the presidential race, and I mean, just seeing him taking executives to task, you can tell, like, on those board meetings and on those overview boards, you can tell the politicians that are truly representing the people. Because, like, Elizabeth Warren, when she get us up there, yeah, and she's attacking Wells Fargo, like, dude, you're a fucking criminal, man. You got to step down. I mean, not in those words exactly. I'm not quoting her, but what I'm telling her is, like, and everybody else is like dancing around the truth, like, oh, like, oh, like, why'd you do that? And she's like, no, dude, this dude did it. He knows what he did. He fucked up, and now he's caught, and now he's being a little coward. And it's just like, that's something. That's a country that cares. That's a person that cares about the constituents that they represent. That's a person that cares about the American dream. That's a person that cares about your child and my child and our family. And Bernie Sanders would do that all the time. Like, he's pointing out huge inaccuracies in our own system. Why the hell does medication cost so cheap in Canada and it's so expensive over here in America, but yet we make the shit? So that doesn't make any sense, so we gotta stop it. You know what I mean? I mean, he did that all the time, like you were saying early before the podcast, what was it? 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all.
Yeah, and we're so in it, like we're so over our ears in trying to make our ends meet that we don't have time to get angry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are still people that are doing great work. You know, and there are some people that are my age that I've come across that I think if they stick with the industry, they'll also rise and be greats of this generation. I also just feel like we're almost in a similar philosophy as a country as we were in the 1950s. So that's the greatest battle I think that the creative has today, is to not listen to all the conforming voices.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And like you were saying earlier too, you know, just push ahead. I mean, you see scary things happen a lot. I mean, I don't know if you know anything about like Amy Goodman, you know, from Democracy Now, but when she was trying to, you know, report on the Dakota Access Pipeline, they were trying to like charge her with like felony counts of riot, trying to, you know, initiate a riot.
Yeah.
Well, which was, it was thrown out by the judge, but I mean, just the fact that like, you know, sometimes the government, man, they do crazy shit, and like, you know, if that was, you know, if the judge would have took that to trial, and if they were trying to charge her with that's scary. That's because that's an attack on free speech.
Yeah.
You know, and that what that does is that sends a message to every child growing up who sees the world and wants to express themselves in the world, that kind of says like, oh, well, I was going to talk about this, but not no more. You know, I'm going to talk about something softer, or I'm going to reword this, you know. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you need artists, musicians, and you need people to just stand up and be like, no, fuck this. Like, this is wrong. You're wrong for saying that. And if you don't like it, what the hell are you going to do about it, you know?
Totally. You know, in some ways, I think it was really inspiring to me to see Dylan take the Nobel this year, because I think that was a reminder, at least to the creative world, that, you know, those are the kinds of voices that shape a generation.
Absolutely. How far are you away from Greenwich Village? I don't really know anything about New York City.
I'm a good, you know, like a 20-minute jaunt.
Like a walk or ride?
No, a ride.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's not. It's obviously not the same thing. That
magical part of New York City where I think almost everything is 20 minutes away from me.
Oh, okay. I get you. That's how I feel living in Indiana too. Do you have any? Okay. Well, first, before I go off, okay. The music correlated so well with your writing. Rocco, what is it? Rocco DeLuca? Is that how his name is?
Yeah.
Awesome. Feather and Knife, one of my favorite songs now. I mean, seriously, what a great song. And it's just like that correlated so well with the photography. I mean, everything just meshed together so well. I love the meshing together of the writing, the music, the cinematography. Oh man, like seriously. And did you have any like say so in the music, or?
I didn't actually. Mike Schmidt, the director, is extremely passionate, and he's actually trained in music, so a lot of the choices, he poured hours over the musical choices and syncing it and making sure everything conversed properly. And Rocco's incredible. Like, I've seen him live. He's so talented. And one of the things, like, he, in some ways, to me, he saved the film, because most of the El Forastero interview ended up being done out of this shitty reporting recorder that I have, that I keep in my pocket when I'm going on in the field. And he took all of those poignant moments, like a lot of the Moose quotes, and he remastered all of that in his studio.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of the information that you guys hear from the film, also Rocco had a hand in making that possible.
That's awesome. That's really cool that he would go out of his way to do that, because he obviously didn't have to, right?
No, he didn't. I didn't even know that he had it. And then Troy told me, he was like, oh yeah, we're using the interview with Moose. And I was like, how? It's terrible. And he was like, no, like here. And he sent me the files, and I was like, this is insane. Like, so Rocco not only made incredible music that I think made the film in a lot of ways, but he also cared about the movie itself.
Well, thank you, Rocco.
Yeah.
You know, and then hey, Willie T. Taylor, he's something too.
Oh, I love him so much. He's such a great lyricist too.
He is. He is. That one song about a baseball, man. That's amazing.
Yep.
All right. Do you have anything in the works right now that you can talk about, or do you have anything that you're trying to do, like how you're trying to progress in the future?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I've got so many things in the works right now. Well, I'm gonna go in order of doneness. I'm finishing up a script. It's a fiction piece. It's a thriller, and that's gonna be done, I think, in December. So that'll go out for option. And then I'm working on, the working title for that is called Mirror Lake. And it's a portrait of a marriage, but also basically like showing that in some ways marriage is its own prison. And then I'm also pitching to HBO and Netflix in June a pilot about an unsolved murder. Kind of like an 8-series show. So that's in the works. In terms of just straight ahead writing, I have a book. I think it should be coming out a year from now called Guide to the Insane. And that's going to be, it's about a bunch of weird weekends I've had in America. So that's more like the style of writing of the film. And right now, I'm finishing up an article. It's either for Slate or Rolling Stone it's about gun violence and gun politics, but it's also about the fact that the first school shooting wasn't Columbine, and it is dealing with that. And then the last thing that I'm super excited about is I've teamed up with Linda Lucas, who does a lot of motorcycle journalism with me. She's a brilliant creative. She does design for Condé Nast, but we're doing a magazine together for a November event.
Well, that's really exciting. It seems like you got a lot on your plate, and I'm gonna like literally read everything that you put out. Like I'm gonna be your number one fan, so that's cool.
Awesome. I need those.
I love what you do. I mean, I really do, and I see the passion. You're a very smart, intelligent woman, and man, there needs to be like a lot more people like you. So,
that's the goal, and I think one of the things I used to struggle with was, you go through the American education system, and academics are so much about being smarter than everybody else, and I think one thing that I had to learn was to come back down and to get humble and to just be honest. And I think that if anything, if I can make people like want to, like you said, like get on their bike and leave, then I've sort of done my job.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good to hear that. Okay. All right. So let's kind of go into a different avenue. Let's talk a little bit more about the current events. Do you have any movements that you're actively involved in that you'd be comfortable with talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not a front lines activist. I think that I've found that like if I'm writing, that's my sort of version. That's the best way that I can contribute. I used to be more into going to protests, but I think again, like I think my strength is to be able to write about it. So I believe in the progressive movement. I will keep writing in support of that. I believe in the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will keep supporting that. I think that both are imperfect, but I think that they're honest and it's addressing widespread issues that are going to take this country down into a very dark place if we don't listen to it. Yeah, I mean, I'm also I'm a big proponent of animal rights. I think that the next enlightenment is going to be our recognizing, in terms of legality, animal rights.
Oh, right on. Yeah, factory farming is a very disgusting industry. It's just it's a very very hard topic. I mean, like, because there's so many people that need to be fed. So, what do you do? But yeah, that shit needs to stop. For some reason, we have these things in our head that, like, like, there's been a couple times too, where I've seen around here, you're driving on the road and you look over and you'll see like a truck packed like to the max with like chickens. And it's just like, that's so like uncomfortable, and like it really bothers me because it's like, these things are like living, like you don't have to treat them like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really weird, like how we justify treating things with such lack of integrity and lack of respect.
Yeah, I mean, I eat meat. I
Yeah,
think
me
it's
too, yeah.
I didn't eat meat for a long time, and I just I was tired all the time. But like I'm not against eating meat, but I also think that we've been industrialized to this level where like it's beyond our conception to keep a chicken and kill it at some point. And like you just said, like instead we're like moving animals across the country. We're eating like kind of shit that's full of like disease or poop, and instead like you could have like 3 chickens in your backyard for almost free and have eggs every day, and then like eat the meat in the winter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think maybe it's not total animal rights in a straight ahead way, but I think it's more like a collective conscience thing. That's like we could all save money and sort of dismantle this industry if we got more comfortable with like killing our food.
Oh yeah, right on. And that what that does too is I think it's a very good thing because we feel so like it's so easy today just to be like, oh, I'm gonna go to the store and get a pack of bacon. You know what I mean? But there's certain lines of respect. I mean, it's obviously said a lot by a lot of different people, but there's nothing really as cool as going out and hunting for your own food and self being self-sufficient in that regard. Like instead of relying heavily on the meat and packing industry.
Yeah, I just think we got oversaturated.
Yeah, and things move very quickly too. So. Okay, so to go into maybe a couple more things, but I kind of want to touch on this because you live in New York City, and during, I think it was the first debate, you were probably living there during the stop and frisk policies, and I found it really quite unnerving and hilarious to Trump to be like, oh, that's not unconstitutional and that works and we need to bring that back. Do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that inherently, I think cops are getting a really bad rap. I also think that cops need to be retrained to not be racist and to have better practices that are constitutional. I think that stop and frisk is one of the best examples of that. It's so racist and so unconstitutional on so many levels. And if that was happening to white boys and girls in the rich neighborhoods, it would have been abolished without question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, they do something in where I live in Bed-Stuy, where they have these like bright floodlights on certain blocks where they like think bad shit might happen, and it's like a vestige from the gang years, but it's these loud generators that go on all night, and it's lit like a fucking football field. And it's so inhumane. And I don't even understand, like, it's like, okay, cool, so you're just going to force the crime into the shadows? Like, what are you going to do with that? So, I mean, I honestly think Trump is more harmless than, I think he just says crazy shit, honestly. Like, I think electing him is one of the scariest concepts our country's been faced with in possibly since the Civil War. That being said, his policies are ridiculous, and I think that he just kind of says shit and it doesn't realize what he's even saying.
Yeah, that definitely could be true. I mean, there's no substance to anything that he says, and I try to attack him vehemently on that.
What do you think about stop and frisk from kind of like an outside perspective?
Well, I mean, I was watching it go on, and I 100% agree it's unconstitutional, and all it does is it's like it keeps on degenerating the system between the cops and the community, because in essence, like, all you're doing is you're just fucking with people. You're just literally going up to people and you're pushing them, you're prying them. Oh, put your hands up, let me check your pockets, and it's just like, how do you feel safe if you're one of those people in these neighborhoods? You look at you're gonna start looking at the cops, especially you being a young teenager, or you being an older gentleman. It's like, dude, like, leave me the fuck alone. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not doing anything wrong and you don't suspect me of doing anything wrong, why are you coming over here and touching me? Like, number one, nobody likes to be touched. You know what I'm saying? You're just what are you doing? You're sitting in a cop car, and you made a good point too. You did make a good point by saying that cops do get a bad rap, because a lot of these laws that they're forced to enforce has to put them in a touchy feely position, because they're like, well, if I don't do my job, I'm going to get fired, and I got a family to feed and all that. So I definitely see the human element, but then I guarantee you, I know for a fact that there's some of those asshole cops out there who are just like, oh, it's going to be a great day. I'm going to see how pissed off I can get these people before I shove them in the back of a squad car, because I got to write tickets and I got to do this to prove my worthiness, and I want to move up in the food chain. And I just it really ticked me off, by him saying it, because a lot of what Donald Trump says is it's not backed up by facts at all, and it's just like that stop and frisk was proven without a doubt to absolutely make no difference in the society. The one thing that did, which was actually hilarious, was the mere fact that when the cops went on the strike because they felt alienated by the mayor, then things all of a sudden started to drop. Crime went down, drug abuse went down, and you just see that. It's just like, you're right. The criminal justice system has to be overhauled. It has to be overhauled. There's no way that a beautician goes to more training and more educational purposes than a goddamn police officer. And it's just like, these guys have guns, and they're putting the
ruin your life.
Yeah, and they do consistently, and they do every day. And
they're ruining a generation. They ruined the last one, but they're in the process of destroying a generation in a population that exists by the millions in our country.
Absolutely. Who feels safe? I don't feel safe. When I get pulled over, I do not feel safe. And I'm white. You know what I'm saying? So I can just imagine. And I try to tell people this all the time. If you are for, and this is a very touchy subject, but it's the fucking truth. If you're 4 white kids in a car and you get pulled over, the majority of the time they're going to just look at you. If you got everything cool, okay, go on your way. I guarantee you, if you are a group of 4 black kids who could be A students, playing basketball, going to their auntie's house or whatever, and you get pulled over in a white neighborhood, I'm sorry, I guarantee you they're looking at you differently. And I guarantee they're going to try to lip off to you so you can lip off back at them. They're going to pull you out in the car. They're going to make a spectacle. And if they find anything, they're not giving you a break. They're putting you away, because for some reason they're viewed as like a threat to the community, the threat to the safety of the community. And it's just like, that's not how you're supposed to treat people. These people, they're real people. You can't ever look at a culture, at a race, and be like, they're the bad ones, because that's how, like, despotism happens. That's how very bad things happen. I mean, there's bad people in every walk of life. There's bad people in every single culture, every single race. And you see it. And people, they lie through their teeth when they say that there's no race thing going on. Come on, man. Come on. Can we just be honest with each other here? And can we just see that we have a problem and try to fix it instead of just ignoring it?
Yeah, I think that it's funny. I think that it's even more of an issue now than it was 10 years ago. And, I think part of it is about the man that has been in office for the last 8 years has really uncovered some serious racism that was buried for some time in this country. But no, you're totally right. It's a weird time, and the media is even playing into it. When Trump talks about a rigged election and a biased media, I work in the media, and it's not a rigged system, but it also chooses the stories that it runs.
Absolutely.
And I think we're focusing so much on race that it's infiltrating everyone's minds in this whole different way.
Yeah, and I mean, you try to have a casual conversation with anybody. As soon as race gets brought up, I'm sorry, but your conversation just deteriorated into nothing, because now you're not even going to be focused on the real issues. On hand, you're not going to be focused on trying to like bring about change in places. I mean, it's not as black as white as I'm trying to make it seem. I get it. The problems are very enormous, and there should definitely be attention paid to graphic detail. But it's just like there's certain things in life. It's very obvious to me. The cure to terrorism is very simple. It's education. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? Because you build up a fairy tale and you make people do things based on things that aren't true, that aren't really down to earth, and you walking around thinking that the sky daddy's out here, and it's just like, and I think that's the truth to this. I mean, you got kids that are growing up, and they have to feel so abandoned by society. They have to be like, where's my out? And I'm not saying to use that as an excuse to be a piece of shit, but what I'm saying is just like, when you're in that situation that me and you aren't in, it's just like, how bad do you have to feel? Is like, man, nobody cares about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, my family's fucking really, I don't have a family to rely on. I can't get a job because I'm black. They got me on a marijuana charge, so now I got that on my rap record. So what the hell do I do? What do I do? I have to go to where I know where I can make money, where I know I can support. I have to go to the streets. And like I said, I'm not condoning criminal activity, but it's just like, in order to try to change perspective, in order to try to bring about real change, you have to step in people's shoes and see how they see things.
Yeah, and the options that are laid out for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, I think it's funny. Like, terrorism is such an interesting debate right now, because in so many ways, I think we're more at war with ourselves than we are with, foreign and domestic terrorism. But if another country came in and wiped my whole family out, and I survived, I don't know what direction my life would take. It makes total sense that people are building bombs.
Exactly, and man, that's
and when you look at that on a domestic level, the thing that's interesting about the projects in New York City, they're still structured like ghettos. Like, you can't drive through them, and you can't really get out of them. They're not walled, but they're essentially like structurally impassable. And I think that's it's so important to know that that's how a certain population grows up. Just completely insulated, policed to the nth degree. And what are your options? Like you said, it's like to make money under the table by selling like low level drugs. Jay-Z, I don't know if you saw that he just came out with this amazing short film on the war on drugs in Brooklyn and in general, but he talks about growing up in Brooklyn. It's called Epic Fail.
I'm gonna check that out.
It's amazing, and it basically shows what you said, that the system was stacked against them, and that's why it hurts. It actually hurts me on a visceral level when Trump talks about the inner city problems. When he's a commercial developer and he's not acknowledging what his industry has done.
Absolutely.
And I think Hillary Clinton is a beyond undesirable candidate for me, but I do think that what she and her husband have done with the Clinton Foundation is, in some ways, I believe, a soft retribution for the policies that Bill Clinton enacted during his presidency.
Yep. Mandatory minimum sentencing is a downright atrocious movement. I mean, you look at the war on drugs, and you follow the history and it's very simple. The Malcolm X movement, Martin Luther King movement, these were big movements, and they inspired a lot of people to try to make a change in the system. And if you're sitting up there and you're like, well, the system's fine, I kind of like segregation, I kind of like these things, and I don't want these to change, what do? Oh, we're on drugs. Give people a reason, give the cops a reason to break down your door, come in and put your family in jail, draw out the guns, and if anybody draws a gun, shoot them in the head, and you're going to be okay. And you can corral this movement. It's just, like I said, it's just a way to fuck with people. How can people, for a second, say that they can try to control what people do with their bodies. It is a touchy subject, but putting an addict, okay, this is how fucked up our justice system is. Putting an addict, whether you're on heroin, methamphetamine, crack, whatever, you put somebody in jail. What are you doing? You just, not only had they had a shitty life by being addicted, but you're not even helping them out. You're corralling them. You're putting them in a shitty, disgusting cell, surrounded by a whole bunch of shitty and disgusting people. When they come out, they're like even more fucked than when they went in. So it's just like,
no, you're ending their life essentially.
Yeah.
Like it's a slow version of like trying to end someone's life.
Absolutely. And now these people that can't get jobs because they got a rap record and like, nobody's helping them out. And it's just like, this whole justice system is, for some reason in this country, is set on the fact of punishment. We got to punish them. You acted wrong. You want to talk tough? Well, get in your cage, buddy, and think about what you did like a little 3-year-old in timeout. And it's not really, you look at other Northern European countries where their whole system is based upon bringing down broken down citizens and creating them and putting them back into society to be productive citizens. How does that?
It's a holistic prison system, which is one of the only functional examples in the entire world.
I mean, it just makes perfect sense though, and people, for some reason, I don't know why they choose to ignore that. Maybe because they're so outdated and they don't see, like you brought up a really good point too, on realizing your projects and stuff. I mean, I was, unfortunately, my mom would drag me into projects at an early age, and I'm not proud of that. And is it places that I want to go? Hell no. But when you get that experience and you look at, like, you go into one of these projects like, Ackale Gardens, which is on the south side of Chicago, like you were saying, the place is a built-up ghettoized community, kind of in some ways not as terrible, but as certain ways as like concentration camps in Nazi Germany.
No, it's the same. It's the same thing.
Is it? Yes, you're definitely right.
There's no gas chamber.
Yes.
I'm from a Jewish family. But,
Right on. Okay.
There's something that I was trying not to go there because I'm an atheist.
Yes.
I think whatever, but I do think that's what I was trying to hit at. That like it's the same thing. We're just instead of sending them to a gas chamber, we're fucking sending them to prison.
Yes. More people are in prison on basic drug crimes than they are for violent crimes. That's fucking mind-boggling, but that's a true statistic. That's a legit true statistic. And like I said, you go in these places, like you said, one way in, one way out. They got one little shitty convenience store that all the kids they go to get their pop, sugar, disgusting food so they can live unhealthy lives. And you got the cops coming in there, circling around. You got abandoned buildings. You got drug addicts on the streets. You can't go in there walking without somebody, hollering at you, trying to get you to buy fucking drugs off them. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I can't imagine trying to be a good grown-up kid and trying to be like, man, I want to get out of here. And some of them do, man. But it should be more because they need help to draw the majority of them out. But to forget about them, I mean, that's a topic that, it's a huge thing. And it's very important to me because you were talking about the gentrification process. Well, that's been happening all over Chicago. And that's a lot of where the violence stems from, is because you bust in, you go in, you take down these projects, you build up new condos, but you're not thinking about what you're doing to these people. You're shoving up people who are already downtrodden, already poor, already desperate, and now you're shoving them into other neighborhoods where other people don't want them. So now it brings out this whole thing of like, what the hell you're doing here? Oh man, and everybody's feeling all weird, everybody's feeling angry, and it's just like, and then it blows up in your face. But all because you wanted to raise the property value. That's it. That's all you want to do. And look at your problems that you created by trying to do that.
One of my favorite periods in history is the French Revolution, and I love like it was such a crazy time, but I think it also was such a baseline for what we see during atrocity. And one thing, people always ask, like, why was the revolution so violent? Like, why did so many people die? And it's like, all you have to do is go back 30 years before the revolution happened and look at what the empire was doing, and they were doing the exact same thing. They were policing, they were quelling rebellions, they were murdering people inconspicuously, and it's like, how did the English take over China? They got everyone hooked on opium. How did we mitigate segregation? We got the inner city communities hooked on drugs.
Yeah.
And it's like, we then are like, oh, well, these areas are unsafe and they're violent. And it's like, no, they're doing what they know. This is what's been done to them for, honestly, since they were brought into the country during the slave trade. But I think more recently, the last 50 years has created this sort of silent segregation that we're only bringing up now because of social media showing police violence.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you're absolutely right in every single thing that you said, and it's just like every single issue is kind of, I mean, in the media, not to speak bad of it, but I mean, I gotta speak bad of like CNN and Fox News because they do these things a disservice. They have these talking heads that they don't ever really talk about solutions to the problem. All they do is they just pander to their base, and that's not the right way to go. The right way to go is to be 100% honest with each other. We are an empire. We have soldiers in a lot of countries around the world. And if we're an empire, well, then let's go back in history and let's look and see how other empires acted. And you're going to find similar correlations that with the French Empire, the British Empire, the Roman Empire, they all kind of suffer from the same things. And when you spread yourself out over a country so big, you're going to have these inconsistencies because, you know, we're too concerned about what's happening way over here with these random poor people in another country who do not represent a single threat to American society. But yet here we are, we're over there, we got to chill this out, man. It's going to come to our homeland. And yet again, like you said, we have burning in the streets and we have riots happening, we have police violence and we have gun violence, and we have all these things that are happening over here. And all that money that we spend filtering through the military industrial complex could go into like projects and systems for inner city children. Why do we, I just don't understand, Kate, and this is another thing that bothers me because I have a daughter, and it's just like, we don't give a shit about this next generation. And to anybody who say that we do give a shit, you're lying. You're absolutely fucking lying. You're not focusing on anything with these children. You're not trying to build a better education system. You don't give a shit about what kind of job that they're going to have as long as they have a shitty job at $7.25 an hour where they got to work 80 hours just to fucking have some one bedroom apartment in some fucking shitty neighborhood. We don't care about this next generation. We're destroying the earth. We don't give a shit about climate change. All we care about for some reason in society is how big we can get fame-wise and how much money we can make without with fucking everybody over in the long run.
Yeah, we're lining our pockets and like waiting to die.
Yeah, exactly. In a nihilistic perspective, exactly. That's exactly what we're doing. Man, it's just it's so much. It's so much. I mean, this was a brilliant conversation with you, and I hope I can have more conversation with you in the future because, you know, I think, you know, you're going to do a lot of great in the world, and I want to see that happen. I really do.
No, thank you, and likewise, and honestly, like, I love what you're doing. I think you're politically and philosophically, you're pushing the envelope with this show, so honestly, like, keep it up.
Thank you. Well, you know, let's get this wrapped up. You know, we both got naps we got to take. You know, we both had long nights and stuff. And
definitely. Thank you, though. I hope we each have another red file for the FBI after this.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're on the watch list now. We ain't flying nowhere no more. But yeah, you know, it's just awesome show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Give it a listen to, like, share, and subscribe. Kate, I'll let you know when this goes up. I'll send you a link or something, and if you just hang on with me a little bit after this, and we'll talk about the finer details of things. And yeah, for everybody who listened to this, thank you for listening to it. She's an amazing person. Check out 21 Days Under the Sky. Do you have any place that people can go and try to follow you or see exactly what you're doing? Do you have a website or anything?
I don't believe in the website, but you're welcome to friend me on Facebook, Kate O'Connor Morris. I will accept you.
All right, guys. Good night. Everybody, good night. Have a great night. Love you guys. You want to say bye to everybody?
Thanks for having me on.
All
yeah,
right.
and thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Awesome.
Gone to bed, God is dead. Lies of truth are in my head. History, society, for me.